Here are the required tools, laid out and ready for use. A utility knife for precise cutting, a tape measure for accurate dimensions, and a set of screwdrivers. Apply a thin layer of oil to the crankshaft bearings. Move along the journals, ensuring even coverage. Rotate the shaft to coat all sides. Finally, spread the oil evenly. Check all piston rings for damage. Look for cracks or chips on the surfaces. Next, check for signs of wear or scoring. Finally, test for proper tension. Insert the crankshaft carefully into the lower engine case. Align the journals with the bearing saddles. Ensure it is fully seated. Rotating the crankshaft by hand to check smoothness. Feel for any resistance or uneven spots. It should turn smoothly if it's in good condition. Hand tighten the main bolts first. Now, use the torque wrench to tighten the spec. Good. That's secure. Stagger the piston ring gaps to prevent gas blowby. Place all the first ring with its gap here and the third's here for a 120-degree offset. Finally, use the compressor tool. This ensures a proper seal. Line the connecting rod with the piston, matching the small end bore to the piston pin boss. Now, insert the wrist pin through both bores with steadies flush. Finally, check the rod pivot smoothly on the pin. Secure the wrist pin by installing the first circlip. Use the circlip pliers to compress the clip. Insert the circlip into the groove and release. Rotate the piston and wrist pin is now secured. First, apply assembly grease to the top ring groove. Work it in thoroughly around the entire groove. Repeat for the second and third grooves. Finally, grease the piston skirt and crown. Check the piston movement inside the connecting rod. Observe the smooth up and down motion. Check for any friction or play at the wrist pin. The movement should be precise and free. First, insert the oiled rag into the cylinder bore. Now, apply a thin, even layer of oil to the walls. Repeat this process for each cylinder. Slide cylinder over the piston carefully. First, install the intake valve into the cylinder head bore. Insert the exhaust valve into the adjacent bore. Use the compressor tool to compress the valve spring. Check the valve for proper seating. Place the first valve spring over the valve stem. Align the coils and press down firmly to seat it. Repeat for the second spring, ensuring both are secure. Position the valve spring compressor over the spring. Compress the spring to access the valve stem. Place the valve retainer onto the valve stem. Slowly release the compressor to lock the retainer. Begin by tightening the center bolts to 50 Newton meters. Next, tighten the outer bolts in a crisscross pattern. Finally, perform a second pass to 80 Newton meters in the same crisscross pattern. First, set the wrench to the manufacturer's spec. Apply steady pressure until you hear the click. The click means it's torqued. Perfect. Now, move to the next bolt. Align the camshaft lobes with the cylinder head bores. Apply a thin film of oil to the bearing surfaces. Carefully slide the camshaft into the cylinder head. Rotate the camshaft to check for smooth operation. Insert the alignment tool into the camshaft gear. Slowly rotate the tool clockwise until the marks align. Perfect alignment. Now, remove the tool and verified. Align the timing chain over the camshaft sprocket and guide it downward. Next, wrap the chain around the crankshaft sprocket in the lower assembly. Finally, pull the chain taut and double-check the alignment. First, apply assembly lube to the tensioner. Align it with the bolt holes on the block. Torque the bolt to spec with the wrench. Finally, press the plunger to test it. Rotating the engine by hand to check the valve timing. Using the timing light to verify the marks align. First, thoroughly clean the engine cover's gasket groove. Now, carefully position the new gasket over the groove. Begin pressing the gasket into the groove, working your way around. Double-check the fit to ensure a tight seal. Insert the first bolt into hole 1. Now, tighten it securely with the hex wrench. Next, insert the second bolt into hole 2 and tighten. Finally, secure the fourth bolt into hole 4. First, inspect the new filter's gasket for damage. Align the filter with the engine port and begin screwing it on clockwise by hand. Once seated, use your hands to tighten it firmly. Do not use a wrench. First, grip the propeller shaft firmly. Now, rotate it clockwise, slowly and steadily. This distributes the oil to protect the engine. Good, one full turn is complete. First, visually inspect the gaskets for any signs of leaking fluid. Next, touch the gasket surface to feel for moisture or residue. Finally, prevents leaks and ensures system integrity. Start by hand tightening the spark plug into the cylinder head. Next, use a torque wrench to tighten it to the specified torque. The wrench will click when the correct torque is reached. Align the carburetor with the intake manifold and insert the bolts. Hand tighten the bolts first to seat the carburetor. Then, use a wrench to tighten them in a cross pattern. This ensures a secure fit. Align the manifold with the engine ports, slide the gasket in place, and use a socket wrench to tighten in a crisscross pattern. Double check all bolts for even torque. First, align the cable end with the carburetor bracket. Slide the Z-fitting into the slot until it clicks. Now, give the cable a firm pull to test. Connection secure, throttle cable is ready. First, loosen the cable adjuster to create slack. Route the clutch cable to the lever assembly. Insert the cable end into the lever slot. Finally, tighten the adjuster to set tension. Align the cable's hook with the lever's pin. Push forward and rotate to hook it securely. Twist the barrel adjuster to tighten. Pull, the connection is secure. Inspecting all bolts and fasteners for proper torque. Bolt A, 49.8 Newton meters within spec. Bolt B, 50.2 Newton meters, good. All bolts are secure. Okay, inserting the feeler gauge to check the intake valve clearance. It's a bit tight, so we'll adjust the rocker arm. Now, reinserting the gauge. The clearance is good. Check piston and cylinder alignment. Insert the feeler gauge slowly to measure the clearance. Try a thicker blade. It should have slight drag. This confirms proper alignment. Remove the gauge. First, locate the spark plug's electrode gap. Select the correct blade from the feeler gauge. Slide the blade into the gap. Check for a slight drag to confirm the gap. Let's check the engine fluids. The coolant is a bit low. I'll add some now. Okay, that's topped up. The other fluids look good. All set.
Listen for unusual noises or vibrations. What was that? There it is again.
First, locate the idle adjustment screw on the carburetor. Using the wrench, turn it slowly clockwise until the idle smooths out. Listen to the engine. Perfect. We're done.